Mr. Howard?
Chair Wolk, Senator Pavlou, Senator Nielsen, thank you. I suppose we're all aware, we've certainly heard plenty about the Flint crisis, and so, we have been focusing a lot on lead recently and trying to see what's needed to ensure that all of our schools have adequate protection. So this proposal requests 2 positions to work with the local school districts in order to ensure that we get adequate monitoring of the schools so that we can ensure that drinking water at the schools are safe. It has a second part as well, and that is that we recently received a letter from US EPA informing us that we were out of compliance with a lot of the reporting requirements that needed to be provided as part of our delegation for the Safe Drinking Water Program. Specifically, our assessment is we only have about 30% of the data that US EPA has requested that be put into the data systems. Now, that sounds terrible, but it's not really that terrible. And the reason is because we have 2 fundamental problems. One is that we have local primacy agencies, 30 county health departments, that we do have some difficulty getting adequate data for the very small systems that they're regulating into our system. And the second thing is that while we have the primary data for all the other monitoring that we're doing, we don't have the accompanying metadata that US EPA is requiring as part of the data reporting system. So the core of the data is pretty firm, but all of the materials that US EPA is requesting is not available, and in fact is, we're obviously way behind in that. There's also some data cleanup issues that we have. So we're requesting 2 permanent positions to add to deal with that issue. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? All right, any public comment on this? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Or is she up here?
No,
for the
she's
next
just-
one? Yes, sorry. I'd be glad to move file item 1.
Thank
If
you.
we're doing it separately.
No, we're not. We're moving items 1 and 2. All right, the staff recommendation and approve as proposed with 2 additional positions to the State Water Board for full federal
Madam Chair.
compliance. Yes?
Speaking to the additional staff positions, we would have concerns about the Philip Chen Department of Finance, I'm sorry. We would be concerned about the costs involved with the additional staff, which will create some pressure on fees that support these programs. And to the extent that you do continue to put these resources in, we note that the statutory limit for safe drinking water account, it's a separate issue. I think issue number 10 would also need to be adjusted.
All right, well, this will move to conference, and if there are adjustments that need to be made, so be it. All right, we have a motion to approve 2 additional positions to the State Water Board for full federal compliance. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, that is approved. That item 2-1. Last issue is the Pesticide Air Monitoring Network. Who's on? Ms. Lee? It's musical chairs. Welcome. There are 2 proposals here, I believe, one for DPR and the other for the Air Resources Board. Who speaks? You're on.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to present today. My name is Jesse Cuevas, Director of Legislation and Policy for the Department of Pesticide Regulations. I'm here alongside the Air Resources Board with a joint May revised proposal to expand the Pesticide Air Monitoring Network. I will first provide an overview of the proposal in respect to DPR and then hand over a portion of it to ARB. This proposal requests $1.24 million for DPR in fiscal year 16-17 from the DPR fund to strengthen our existing air network by first revising the site selection process to include the consideration of children's health and environmental justice factors, increase the number of year-round monitoring sites in communities from 6 to 8, as well as increasing the number of pesticides monitored. The current results of monitoring shows a need to expand the network because 2 pesticides exceeded DPR's health screening concentration levels. And in order for DPR to better collect data regarding school children's potential exposure to pesticides, additional monitoring sites are needed in areas not included under current monitoring. This proposal follows up and expands on Cal EPA's Environmental Justice Action Plan to better evaluate the impact of pesticides in children's health and environmental justice communities. When air monitoring sites are chosen, DPR provides schools and communities the option to be notified of the data results. DPR will also continue to present findings through the Pesticide Registration and Evaluation Committee and complete annual reports on the air monitoring. DPR will then compare the new air monitoring data with our health screening levels and add additional mitigation if needed. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Air Resources Board to share the comments on their components.
Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Michael Benjamin, Chief of the Monitoring and Laboratory Division at the California Air Resources Board. Thank you for having me here today to speak to you about the proposed expansion of the Air Resources Board and Department of Pesticides Pesticide Air Monitoring Network. For more than 30 years, ARB has supported DPR in operating the existing pesticide air monitoring network, conducting limited field studies, and performing related laboratory analysis. This proposal builds upon ARB's existing expertise in pesticide air monitoring and laboratory analysis. ARB's portion of this proposal requests $463,000 in fiscal year 2016-17 from the DPR fund and $851,000 from the Air Pollution Control Fund to strengthen our existing pesticide air network by doing 3 things. First, operating 5 of the 8 year-round monitoring sites, as well as increasing the number of pesticides monitored. Second, conducting 3 intensive seasonal monitoring studies each year. And third, analyzing laboratory samples from this expanded pesticide air monitoring program. The funding for this proposal includes $463,000 for temporary help, that's 3 positions, $136,000 for operating expenses, and one-time equipment purchases of $715,000. If funded, this program will allow ARB to better assist DPR in assessing Californians' exposure to pesticides by analyzing ambient air samples collected at an expanded air monitoring network of year-round sites, supplemented by intensive community-focused field studies conducted during periods of pesticide application. The proposed expanded air monitoring and laboratory analysis program will be for a 2-year limited term. With that, we are happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Are there questions from the committee?
No question.
All right, hearing none. Is there any public comment on this issue? Come forward.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the California Cotton Growers and Ginners Association, Western Plant Health Association, and some other agricultural production clients. We're opposed to this proposal. There have been 2 exceedances, but what you didn't hear was that that's happened over the last 7 years. What we really should be talking about is the success story that this air monitoring program has demonstrated to be, in that with the collaboration and coordination of the environmental justice community, the agricultural community, and others, identifying where these sites should be located, the products that should be analyzed, and that over that period of time, there have only been 2 exceedances, which shows that there really isn't a problem. And so to come back and ask for this additional money coming out of the DPR fund, to ask for the additional sites, to ask for the expansion of this program does not seem to be justified from our perspective. DPR has spent nearly $500,000 every year for the last few years on this program. And again, we believe that it's shown to be successful. And if they need to move sites, they need to expand products, that they could do that through the existing program that they have with the existing appropriations that they have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would you like to respond to some of those concerns in terms of what the problem is?
Just quickly, we did have 2 exceedances of our health screening level with 2 fumigants. Although there was only 2, I mean, it does tell a good success story of the other pesticides that we do monitor. The fact that we did have 2 exceedances shows that possibly there could be room to rework how those pesticides are applied and used on a regular basis to make sure that we do not have exceedances again.
And this is Michael Benjamin from the Air Resources Board. To provide some context, the current monitoring network for pesticides is only 6 sites. For ozone and particulate matter in California, we have several hundred sites statewide. So I think that in order to have a better understanding of true exposure to pesticides, that it is judicious and reasonable to expand the network as proposed.
All right, thank you. We have in front of us the recommendation to approve as proposed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It has been moved. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, that is approved 2-1. Thank you. All right, we're now moving into the May revision drought proposals and January budget update. I have a request to deal with some of these items separately. Senator Nielsen, I shall. Items 1 and 2, which is the tree removal and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I see.
Separating.
These two? Or no? Oh, all right, just talking about the staff rec. Okay. All right, we have, all right, who is, all right, are you speaking for the
Department of
route proposals?
Yes.
All right. There are 8 areas of budget concern. The recommendation is to approve the governor's proposals, and there may be disagreement on some of the recommendations. So just present your proposal.
Chair, Senators Chuck Bonham, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm prepared to describe the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's component of the overall, which is a both reduction at 4.2 million and then an increase in 4.2 million. If you have specific questions for Department of Water Resources or others, we can make sure they're available immediately.
Yes, why don't let's start.
Madam Chair, Rachel Ehlers with LAO.
Yes,
Do you
indeed.
want me to
That
give
would be
an
a good
overview?
idea.
Okay, sure. Happy to.
We'll have the LAO.
To do that. So the drought package before you, as you'll recall, we heard this earlier, the governor's budget included $323 million in various drought proposals across various departments. Our analysis at that time was that they mostly seemed reasonable, but everyone was sort of waiting to see how our winter turned out. And we got some rain, but by no means the Darth Nino that was hoped for. So because the hydrology has improved somewhat, the administration has modified I would say somewhat moderately their original proposal. Most of the components are the same. There are a few redirections of funding, so I'll highlight those for you, and I think they're also highlighted in your agenda. On the DWR side, there was $42 million for potentially installing and removing a drought salinity barrier. And there was $5 million for a water conservation Save Our Water campaign. So portions of those have been redirected. The $42 million is no longer there. It's anticipated that it certainly won't be needed to be removed because it was never installed this spring. If it needs to be installed next spring, there's also a piece of previously authorized bond funding to be reauthorized that will be there for that. So no general fund for that. From the Save Our Water piece that was $5 million in January because of the improved hydrology, the department feels that it won't need as robust a campaign, so they're redirecting $3 million away from that. So of that 42 plus 3 redirected, most of it is going to CAL FIRE for dealing, and the Office of Emergency Services for dealing with tree mortality, dead and dying trees, and really removing those trees to address fire safety. For DWR, there's an increase of $5 million for emergency drinking water, which was also discussed in this. So that's one of the big redirections, and then the other is redirected within the Department of Fish and Wildlife's budget, $4.2 million, which I can let the director speak to.
All right, that would be helpful.
Again, Chuck Bonham, the Director of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Thanks to the LAO for the overview. So our department in January, in the original proposed budget, and then subcommittee hearings with you described, we'll be monitoring hydrology and ecosystem effects and then adapting our drought approach. We're able to find or move 4.2 million from the previously proposed amount in 3 ways. There is good news and bad news for us relative to the change in hydrology. Generally speaking, in the northern part of the state, it's wetter, and the watershed habitat conditions look better, particularly compared to the last couple of years. So we believe in our professional judgment, we will have less demand and pressure for immediate fish rescue, staff deployment, and as a result, less demand for some of the aquatic stressor monitoring we've been doing in the north. That allows us to reduce that component by 1.2 million. However, we know we'll have the continued expected demand in the southern part of the state, which is much drier and has some of our rarest, most endemic native trout species. So a reduction of 1.2 million in that component in the north. Second way we're able to make a change. This hydrology, wetter north, drier south, plays out for our own properties. We've been using some of the emergency drought money to take our wildlife areas and improve our own water use efficiencies. This year in the north, we'll get more deliveries in our contract relationships, and we're going to relieve the emphasis up there, but we will continue to have a similar need in the south because it's drier for our properties. Lastly, we are reducing the January request of $2 million, which was to improve several of our hatcheries, and specifically our Hot Creek hatchery, which is in the east side of the Sierra outside Mammoth Lakes. The reason why. We have new information from when we saw you last, and this was proposed in January. That hatchery operates off spring water. The dry hydrology on the east side has required us to contemplate tapping into groundwater. That would require us drilling a lot of wells. When we've taken an additional look at this, the cost and the permitting complexity and the risk we see in trying to avoid that over-reliance on those springs groundwater caused us to just pull back the whole proposal. We can shift our trout production and not take a hit on production by increasing our activities at Black Rock and our fish spring facility on the east side. So we can scrub, if you will, 4.2 million. You'll also see in the May revise that we propose to use that 4.2 million and direct it towards Delta smelt for 3 types of activities, but all because Delta smelt are in a precarious state. The first area of activity would be to engage in design work for additional habitat restoration. We know that if you can take some of the Delta area and restore it to intertidal habitat, you'll get food productivity benefit, and that may relate to positive population growth in the smelt. Second area we would expend funds, there is a food productivity problem where it's generated in the northern part of the Delta and it's not transported down into where the smelt actually live. We would do some project work in that category. And then third, aquatic invasive weeds. They produce predator habitat and they decrease turbidity, smelt-like turbidity. So we'll be doing enhanced aerial survey and mapping and then eradication of that invasive species with the Boating and Waterways Department and our federal colleagues.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? Senator Nielsen? Yes, relating to anything, actually, in this item. We have a number of things.
I had a question on the tree removal. Who would I ask about?
That's a good question. Tree removal.
It's just for point of clarification.
CAL FIRE. Don't go far.
It's just to make it even stand up. Yeah, just a point of clarification on the tree removal, on defining high hazard areas.
Yes, Janet Berenson.
And does it relate to SRA areas, or is there overlapping use of fees, or how's this working?
Janet Berenson, Chief Deputy Director for the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Chief Pimlott sends his regrets that he could not be here. He's currently in Washington, D.C. lobbying the U.S. Department of Agriculture, members of Congress, and the Washington Office of the Forest Service for additional resources to address this growing issue. High hazard areas, as defined, cross all boundaries. It includes U.S. Forest Service, local government, and SRA areas.
Okay, so is the SRA fee being used in the SRA area?
The SRA.
Or how does that
So color of money, we are using a number of resources. Everyone has brought their resources to bear, including the proceeds from the state responsibility area fee. We have issued $1.7 million in grants specifically to address tree mortality in the high hazard areas. All departments are bringing whatever resources they have, including Caltrans, local governments, the Office of Emergency Services. We've used our own general fund as well, redirecting our own resources and overtime to actually go and cut down trees and remove them, or at least stack them up in an area. We also have purchased over $6 million in equipment out of the general fund to use in removing and addressing trees.
Also, in addition to private property, it includes state parks as well?
Absolutely.
There's a growing concern in the Santa Monica Mountains, as Southern California's in their 5th year of record drought, 1/3 of normal rainfall, that a need for, because it's an area that often is plagued by wildfires that cross multiple canyons to the sea, that somehow the resources aren't going. So is it a grant application through CAL FIRE?
We used the SRA grant money. We looked for those grant requests that address tree mortality, not only in the high hazard counties that were addressed under the governor's emergency proclamation, but we also looked for tree mortality projects throughout the state as one of the primary criteria for issuing the state responsibility area grants.
So the point person on this is going to the CAL FIRE website? We're just not seeing grants coming.
You should see a report. We just
The state parks have to apply for a grant?
They can apply for a grant, as well as work with their local unit to work on a cooperative project together, and using existing resources, departmental resources, as well as parks resources.
The reason I'm going down this line of questioning is I'm worried about state liability on not taking care of lands that are in their jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
And so between conservancies and state parks, and the huge hit of deferred maintenance money, the amount of dead trees coupled with coming into our fire season is going to be problematic.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do with the state parks is each park has a fire plan that they work on with the local CAL FIRE unit, where they look at those projects that they need to address to mitigate or reduce fire threat, or park visitor safety and security.
I'll just make an editorial commentary. CAL FIRE seems to be, because that's the primary fire department in rural areas or Northern California, we don't, the perception is we don't see a lot of, as much interest as we would like in our area on state expenditures, especially for problems with trees.
Senator Pavley, if I may add, again, Rachel Ehlers from the LAO, also included in the governor's May revision package, but not in the jurisdiction of this committee, is $30 million for the Office of Emergency Services to remove trees through the California Disaster Assistance Act, because the governor declared a state of emergency. So counties will be able to apply to their to OES for reimbursement, and I think it's up to 75% of county costs for trees that are on public lands and causing a public hazard. So that'll be a beginning. Please correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly.
Allowing me to ask the questions, and I can follow up later.
Yeah.
And if I may add one further comment, LA County is actually a contract county for the department. We actually pay LA County to protect the state responsibility area on our behalf. So you may see more of LA County in your district providing those services because they're doing it on our behalf through a contractual arrangement.
My district's Ventura County.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, Senator Nielsen.
A couple of questions. One, I thought I heard you say that state responsibility fees are going to activities in state parks. Is that correct?
That would be one of the areas where there are adjoining places where there are structures where we can put in fire breaks or fire areas to protect residential structures.
Okay,
Yes.
because there has to be the nexus to private property.
Absolutely.
Because they are the beneficiaries, not the state parks.
Correct.
Okay. One of the recommendation here is to reject the biomass interconnectivity language in the trailer bill. Now, I think that's a problem. We have to have that. These biomass facilities, we're shutting them down. What would be CAL FIRE's alternative if we do not have these biomass facilities? That seems to be so critical to me. I don't understand why we wouldn't just move ahead with that here and why we would omit it from the trailer bill.
Sandy Goldberg with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and we do think it's important to move ahead with that because bioenergy facilities are intended to be an alternative to open burning as a way to dispose of dead trees, and so bioenergy facilities would reduce the impacts on air quality and health and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions.
That's critical. Now, am I clear that the assembly version of the trailer bill has that in it? Is that correct?
Ross Brown with the LAO. I don't believe the Assembly has acted on this issue yet. The recommendation here is to reject that particular language without prejudice, and so it might be later on in the process.
Well, I think that's risky business. I would advise us to include that in this version, and that would be my motion.
Ellen Moradi, Department of Finance. The Assembly has agendized that issue for this morning, and the staff recommendation is to approve the trailer bill language.
Right, and the point is to send it through to the conference committee. I agree with you that it is a very important issue. It is of serious concern, and it has to be looked at some more in the conference committee, the language in particular for the trailer bill. That's my understanding.
I think it's inarguable. I don't see why to even go to conference committee. I'll vote no on our motion here if it is to approve it without that language in it.
All right, further questions? Briefly.
Excuse me, sorry, just to clarify, our recommendation on that particular item was to reject without prejudice as well. I think the policy in general does appear to have some potential merit. I think we just had some clarifying questions. For example, the language includes all bioenergy projects and not just forest bioenergy projects, and so there was just some questions about it being a policy issue and the extent to which it goes beyond sort of what's trying to be directly addressed through this proposal.
Is there public comment? Okay.
Morning, Madam Chair.
On any item in the drought proposal?
I'm speaking specifically to the biomass interconnection trailer.
That's fine.
My name is Jonathan Kusel. I'm with the Sierra Institute for Community and Environment. We work with 15 groups, community groups, largely impoverished communities from the Southern Sierra across the North State. And the critical nature of this is that a couple of the groups with biomat projects have already been booted out of the queue simply because they do not have the money to stay in the queue. And so by being booted out of the queue, they then have to come up with the money to get back into the queue, and of course, everything is delayed. Other groups are now looking at this and saying, we can't even begin to start because all what's going to happen is we are going to be bounced from the queue as well. And it's an issue. Without a PPA in place, then there essentially is nothing fungible, so they're stuck. So that's why this trailer language is particularly important, and there's an urgency element to it. Thanks very much.
Correct. And just for clarification, once again, the reason we are rejecting it is that we want to look further at the trailer bill language, and that's why the other committee is approving. It could have been the opposite direction. It doesn't take away from the importance of the issue and the importance of getting some trailer bill language in that reflects the need. Okay?
Thank you.
Further public comment on any of these issues in the drought package?
Hi, my name is Krista Darlington. I'm here on behalf of the Placer County Air Pollution Control District. We've been actively involved in trying to reduce open pile burning so that we leave more room in our airshed for prescribed fire, to reduce the threat of catastrophic wildfire that affects our valleys and our foothills every summer. We're very concerned about making sure that bioenergy projects have the support that they need so that we don't have further wildfire and open pile burning. The trailer bill language as it stands now directly helps the facilities interconnect when they have costs over $1 million to do this. It may have a tangential benefit to some other types of bioenergy, but really it's focused and the purpose of it is for the benefit of forest biomass. So I would urge you to reconsider and go ahead and vote for it today. Thank you.
All right, further comment on any of these items?
I have some, but let her, please.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just briefly, a couple proposals that haven't been noted on page 21 of your agenda. There were 3 BCPs for DWR, which I'd put in the category of preparing for future drought, 2 sort of related to SGMA and groundwater, and 1 starting to move forward in response to the governor's executive order on adjusting urban water conservation targets. That's item number 5. We looked pretty closely into this and ultimately determined that we think it's reasonable and we'd recommend adopting it, but we did want to highlight it for you really because this is moving towards a pretty major policy change.
All right, Senator Nielsen, you had a question.
Well, it was one of your concerns that agricultural pruning, burning, that's a very critical issue. And I would hope that that's not a concern. These cogeneration facilities are really critical for getting rid of our agricultural waste as well, not just the forest and the fire burning, but these agricultural wastes are critical too. And we've got a huge problem. So I would hope that that's not one of the concerns that we would omit those facilities because they're going to be burning agricultural waste.
Not really a concern. Again, just to reiterate, I think we think the proposal has a lot of potential merit. I think our suggestion was just to give it a little bit more time to sort through some of the details.
Okay, well, I'll be one of the sorters. Thank you.
And I share the concern of Senator Nielsen as well. All right.
Just a brief comment. The reason the governor's office didn't propose this change only for woody biomass category is that we also are aware that there's a dairy digester project, one of the other categories that received a grant from CDFA, from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds, and it has also faced the same issue and had to withdraw from the queue and might lose the grant and might have to abandon the project. So we thought to include the other categories as well made sense, but those could be eliminated.
Good. Well, we all look forward to further clarification on these issues, recognizing that these programs are very important and are at risk. So with that, I will entertain a motion on the staff. There are 3 staff recommendations. First of all, to approve the budget as revised, the proposals as revised, including the budget bill language for item 7, which was the Assembly suggestion, the statewide agricultural land use data. And number 2 is to approve the LAO recommended reporting language regarding the Department DWR 2 on or before January 1st, 2020, to provide the legislature with a plan for ongoing program reform and an evaluation of the success of the reforms put forward in their proposal at the LAO. And I will hold on number 3. All right, so Would you make a motion on the first two
The
items?
first two items, certainly. Make a motion to approve per staff recommendation items 1 and 2.
All right, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye?
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, those items are approved 3-0. And the last is the language to reject without prejudice the biomass interconnection trailer bill language included in the tree removal proposal for further review during the conference committee. Do I have a motion?
Move file item 3 and look forward to the discussion.
All right, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, that is approved 2-1. Thank you all. We're now moving to cannabis. That is the cannabis trailer bill language.